tonight and for showing your huge grace and gratitude to the cause that binds us together. We're here because we feel that our state is in big trouble, our children are in big trouble, our freedoms are on attack. Whether it's a mandatory vaccination, mandatory masking, or any kind of government intrusion or mandate, we feel that these are not the ways our founding fathers had intended us to live. We're blessed with individual liberties. Our Constitution consists of individual Bill of Rights. We do not recognize collectivism and collective rights. Many of you know that I came from communist country. I lived there for 28 years. Collectivism is the way of life in other places, but never should that be a way of life in America.
Yeah.
What I found is that Americans are so unique, but you have never, ever, in 22 years that I've lived here, you have never showed bias towards me, even though I'm talking to you with this accent. You've never, ever doubted my intelligence, my knowledge, my education. You are the reason why I built my two practices really successfully, and you're the reason why I have 3 children, and I live happily right here in Queen Anne's County. But last year, something happened that woke me up. Whether I was supposed to be canceled, whether I was supposed to be silenced, it turned out to be the opposite. I started speaking louder. I started being more bold. I started fighting for our children first. And as a result of that fight, to those of you who are not in Queen Anne's County, you may have heard that our Queen Anne's County took down the Board of Education, toxic superintendent, and we opened up schools in June with no mask at the time.
Yeah.
Only to be bullied back into mandates, masking, and enforcement by our state's superintendent and our state board of education. That's not how framers intended our school system to be. That's not how our children are supposed to live, thrive, and develop. Those of you who do not pay too much attention to numbers, after 20 minutes of masking, child is not receiving oxygen in the amount of 67%. So there's a reduction of oxygen in brain by 67%. And no one's talking about what that can do to a child's development since their brains are developing. I tend to speak every single night to a different group of parents, and I tend to tell them one fact, and that is I have 3 boys. One is a collateral damage of No Child Left Behind. Second is a collateral damage of Common Core, and third was supposed to be collateral damage of critical race theory, critical queer theory, critical gender theory. These are 20 years of experimentation with education with our children, and that is just the beginning. Our children, as a matter of fact, were invited to march with Black Lives Matter organization in June with their superintendent. So they're so close to call them social justice warriors and activists, and we're talking about elementary and middle school kids. In Howard County, the school adopted child pornographic material that was exposed to children in middle school, and I picked up the book from that library, and I could not believe that no one has been arrested and no one has been prosecuted when exposing children in Howard County Middle School to classical definition of child pornography. So that's why I'm running. I am running with Dan Cox to restore freedom to the state of Maryland, and I can tell you, it is extremely important that we get everyone's boots on the ground, everyone's support, because at the end of the day, it is going to be what Ben Franklin told us. We will have this glorious country and this republic only if we are able to keep it. So the times of luxuries are over. The times of complacency are over. and the time to work for our freedom begins. I've been on the trail. I've been working very hard for you, for my children, and for our nation. So I won't take too much longer. This is going to be a much shorter speech than I normally give. But I wanted to begin with one person who actually was the pioneer of putting the heels on the ground, nonetheless, of the city of Baltimore. That is the city that gave me my first job. I started in Baltimore, 100 East Pratt Street, as financial advisor for Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith in 1999. And that city has a special place for me. But the debacle and disaster, the waste of human life, atrocities that occur in this city on a daily basis are something that we should not ever sit quietly still without doing something about it. I don't know whether there was ever a governor who did anything to save people from murders and crimes. Baltimore City is a sanctuary city. Yesterday, that city recorded 300th death of a 5-year-old, and that is almost as bad as Beirut. However, that's happening in our state, in Maryland, and that's happening in our city. So Miss Kim Klacik doesn't need much of my introduction. Everyone knows who she is, but I am really privileged and honored that she's here to support people who are truly grassroots. Dan and I are not politicians who are going to be playing politics with big special interests. I can tell you that we have one and only one interest group in mind, and that is you. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you Kim Klacik.
And yes. So thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is a fight that we're having for our lives at this point. I want to get into what I did with my campaign and why Grassroots is so important, but I wanted to also say hoorah to Kyle Rittenhouse today, right? Justice was served. Not guilty. Thank you. Justice was served. Oh my gosh, self-defense. I made a video before I got here today and just posted it really quick with the verdict that was read. And I just talked about the fact that this is justice for everybody, right? It was the media that was driving that story. And I also said, go back in time. The Black Panthers would have been on Kyle Rittenhouse's side, right? We always talk about this whole thing with race, even though this case had nothing to do with race. But we hear about it all of the time from MSNBC, CNN, and everybody else. But we know that Kyle Rittenhouse was targeted basically by the media because of what? He supports the Second Amendment. He's a white male. He can't even help that, right? He was a white male, and then he was in a situation where there was a riot with Black Lives Matter. And the media will always support Black Lives Matter, even though most Black people don't support that. That's so interesting, right? So I wrote on Facebook not too long ago, I said, if you took Kyle Rittenhouse and put that, instead of in Kenosha, put it in Baltimore City, make Kyle Rittenhouse a Black man, and all 3 shooting victims Black, you would have never heard about this case. And in Baltimore, they saw, 34% of the crimes? Kyle probably wouldn't have been on trial. But it's different, right? Because he was that guy they could attack. And so today the president made a statement, President Biden, not my president, but President Biden. And he said that a lot of people today are probably very angry and very confused. And I posted this on my Facebook if you want to read it. And he said, including me. Now this is the guy who's supposed to be uniting the country. So basically what that was code for if you want to riot, go ahead. That's right. That's what he did. And so tonight, we'll see what happens. I know the National Guard isn't too far away. The last time, Kenosha didn't really call in the National Guard. And so some people said, Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have been in that situation. He should have never crossed state lines. And I thought, what does the left care about borders? he thought what it meant to be an American, right? I think we can all agree with that. But at the same time, they talk about borders now, right? They're all about borders. But at the same time, why did we normalize rioting in this country? Had that riot not have happened, none of this would have happened. But they don't look at that part. That wasn't a peaceful protest. What we saw for years to come were not peaceful protests, right? There were riots, there were looters. AOC said there were people that just wanted bread. I said, really? In Foot Locker? That's where they're getting bread? No. There are people that really want to destroy our country. Now I look at that and I say, okay, what's going to change? As you guys know, I ran for Congress in Baltimore. I ran against Paisi and Fume. He was a former congressman and also the president of the NAACP, the former president. So I was up against a pretty big climb, right? I thought, oh my gosh, it was a D+30 district. And so it was tough, and I knew it was tough. But when I got in the race, and I know you guys probably hear this all the time, Dan and Jordan, they said, don't even attempt it. Don't even try, because you can't win. And I said, wow, I'm almost certain places like Georgia and Texas, right? You got Stacey Abrams. You got people that are chipping away at red states all of the time. No one in the Democrat Party probably tells them, don't try.
Right.
For some reason, the Republican Party, we say that.
All the time.
All the time.
Yep.
Now, I got a little bit of hope this last time around in the elections because we saw Virginia made a change. And then we were talking earlier with Janet. We were talking earlier about basically Lieutenant Governor now Winsome Sears.
Yes.
Supports the Second Amendment and about the Constitution. She is an immigrant and she cares about retaining the American dream, as Jordana. People know how important it is. I know how important it is. Believe it or not, my father grew up in foster care. He did not have what you could consider the best life, but he made the best out of it. And he told me the thing that turned him around, he was adopted by a man that was in the military. And I always wondered this because he would wake us up in the morning and he would say, Kim, fold your pajamas and put them under your pillow. And I'm like, Mom, do I have to? You know, but she was like, no, this is what your dad wants. You have to make your bed, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Every morning, there were all these rules. And I didn't understand at the time, now I do. But my dad went on to be an executive at IBM. Wow. This is a kid that was in foster care that didn't know where he was going in life. So I know it can happen. The American dream is still here somewhere, right? It's just now we're looking at a country that we don't really recognize, but I know we can get back to that. Now I am so glad that you guys are running. I know you're going to kick butt when it comes to grassroots. And that's what really put us over the top in our race. It was a D+30 district. In the Baltimore City part of our district, we have Baltimore County, Howard County, and Baltimore City. In the Baltimore City part, typically a Republican only gets 3,500 votes. We were able to get 14,000 votes. Wow. I was hoping that Governor Larry Hogan would have pushed kind of like Governor Ron DeSantis and then said no to no unsolicited mail-in ballots. As you saw in Annapolis and many other places, having unsolicited mail-in ballots is basically giving people a free ride to crime and fraud, and that's, unfortunate. Another thing that we have in this state that I thought you would stand up for is saying no to ballot harvesting. How many people knew that ballot harvesting was legal in the state of Maryland?
I didn't know.
So I didn't know until it was too late, right? So we're running our race. And we noticed that we're hearing all this stuff about Mfume's team going to different nursing homes and collecting ballots. They were going down different blocks through West Baltimore collecting ballots. And I'm like, what's ballot harvesting? They're going to get caught. It's illegal. And then we find out in Maryland, it's not illegal.
Wow.
So they know what they can get away with at the same time, right? And so these are all these things that we have to look out for. But at the same time, we have to have each other's back. If you ever notice in the Democrat Party, and I don't hate Democrats, I actually hate progressives. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I hate progressives. The progressive agenda is what's killing us. But in the Democrat Party today, Not only do they know their way around some things so they can get in fraud and do different things, the Democrats understand how to be organized and how to support one another. We have that problem, right? We don't always support one another. Kate, I know you are working very hard at making sure that we all do support each other. You guys gotta give a round of applause. We need this more in Maryland. I talk a lot about the GOP party. You know, when I ran my race, I did not get support from the Maryland GOP. I didn't really get support from the RNC, believe it or not. When I spoke at the RNC convention, at that time I had the viral campaign ad, and I had Trump's endorsement. Wow. And Ronna McDaniel said that's still not enough to speak at the RNC convention. Literally within 12 hours of us recording our speech, there was a call from Air Force One, and President Trump said, "No, Kim's speaking at the RNC." And that is still today, I think, one of the best speeches that I've ever given. I didn't get to write it, so at that time, but it was great. It was the best speech because we really did call out Joe Biden and so many others, because this was right after he made that comment. If you have to choose between me or Trump, then you ain't black. And we were able to include that in the RNC convention speech. The interesting part about that is MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, you know, they all knew who was coming up next, right? They all had the lineup. And they all saw our speeches beforehand because they recorded 8 hours prior. So when I came on, believe it or not, they cut to commercial. So you only saw it if you were watching Fox and some other networks. So I was like, great. And so that leads me to going on The View. How many people saw that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I saw it.
yes, that was scary.
Awful.
So, we got cut from the MSNBC news feed, right, for the RNC convention. I said, wow, some people still aren't getting the message, because believe it or not, a lot of people in Baltimore City aren't watching Fox. They're not watching One America. They're not watching Newsmax. They're not. But they are watching The View. And so they kept calling me and calling me. They're like, Kim, we really want you to come on The View. And I'm like, why do they keep calling me? And then I was like, you know what? Forget it. We're going to reach the other side, so we're going to go. So we go on The View. They're going back and forth with me. They want me to blame Trump for the coronavirus pandemic and the response. And I'm like, really? Because he gave the response to every state individually. That's why governors were coming in to meet him. But Joy Behar did not want to hear that. Yeah. She was like, come on, Kim. You know Trump screwed it all up. What? And I was like, is this Joy? I pretended like I couldn't see her, but I could see her. I was like, is this Joy? And she goes, yes, it is. And I'm like, Joy, that's been parading around in blackface? And she goes, oh!
Yeah, she got mad.
She got hit.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody started screaming. They were cutting me off. And then immediately they were like, get her off. I hear in my ear, get her off, get her off, get her off.
Oh, my God.
And then I was like, all right, well, they're going to cut me. So I just want to be pleasant. So I was like, and thank you for having me. And that's how it ended. I was like, yes.
That was great. That was great.
I cut her, and then I was polite. I was super excited how it went, but there were a lot of people, believe it or not, that saw me on The View. And I thought the audience were going to be mad because they're, you know, very anti-Trump. But there was actually a lot of people that commented and said, why did you cut her off? We were listening. She was making good points. And so I think a lot of people started to really talk after that. So I was excited that I went on. I know there guys are going to be in situations where it's not going to be the most fun situation, but it's necessary. Yeah. And that's what happens when you get in this fight. You know, I think about it all the time, and I was thinking about it on the drive here, which took 2.5 hours.
Oh my gosh! Oh my
the big bridge is closed for some reason.
Oh my goodness!
So I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know, Democrats, they really have it easy in the fact that they offer free things that are material, right? They offer for free assistance as far as food, free welfare, the vouchers,
child care.
And so they're all things that they can see, they can touch, they can feel. Whereas we're offering freedom.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes, yes.
It's like you can't really see it, touch it, feel it. Yeah. So it's a hard sell. And I think that's the issue, right? We got to really sell it. We have to make sure they hear it. And it's gonna be a fight, it's not gonna be fun. It's not gonna be fun. You're gonna get beat up on social media constantly, right? You just gotta keep going. Don't read the comments, unless you're getting really crazy.
Jordan is on social media.
Yeah.
Social media, so
But, and that means that we have to make sure we share everything that she says and does, right?
Yes.
Because we have to support, Like, that's what's going to beat, should I say her name, Kelly? That's what's gonna beat the opponent.
Yes.
It's us helping each other and doing grassroots style, because otherwise we're not going to make it. It's going to be tough. The good thing is that we have a lot behind us, right? There are a lot of people that are just fed up.
Yes.
Like in Loudoun County, Kent County, everywhere, people are fed up. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I am fed up. Some of the things that she says to me, believe it or not, you guys ever watch Nickelodeon these days, Nick Jr.?
No.
Nick Jr. has like hidden messages.
Oh, yeah.
There's a commercial, there's a commercial that comes on and says, I just want to be treated equal. I'm black, I'm this, I'm that. And so my daughter's biracial. And she's like, so am I not equal? She's like, maybe half of me is. And I'm like, no, you are equal, right? But that's the lesson that they're teaching the kids, right? Mommy's oppressed by daddy, which is not true, right? I wear the pants always. But that's what kids are starting to think, because that's what they're putting in their minds. And so we just have to continue to fight that message, and I know that we can. I know we're waiting for redistricting to happen. Luckily, you guys are statewide, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but just so you guys know, I have a PAC called Red Renaissance, where we're supporting candidates across the country.
What's it called?
We have 23 candidates running for congressional office, and then we support people running for local office. Just in this last election in Virginia, Mike Cherry, we supported District 66, and then also AC Cordova, it's in District 91 in Hampton. In Virginia, they flipped the delegation down there. So
Oh, great.
delegates that flipped their seats, and then also school board seats we flipped in New Jersey.
Wow.
So we are
That's great.
We have Marcus Trent, Marcus Trent, he runs my groundwork for Red Renaissance. They do a great job getting volunteers together, knocking doors. You see Scott Pressler out a lot, registering voters. We got to get more involved in that. Scott said he'll come to Maryland a lot more, so that's great. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take work. We have to work hard. We have to basically get our country back. Get our state back. It's like we have a Republican governor, but it doesn't feel like it.
I know. Oh, goodness.
Right? It doesn't feel like it.
No.
But I know that we can get it back. A Hollywood actor, even though I don't love Hollywood, a Hollywood actor said one day, to get what you never had, you're going to have to do what you've never done. And this is Denzel Washington. And if you ever listen to Denzel, he's very into God and church.
He's still
Yes, and so there are people out there that are on our side. They may not be able to say it, but they are on our side. And when I look at how much money that we raised in our race, believe it or not, a race they told us not to run in, we raised $8.4 million.
Wow.
Small donors across the country, and probably many people in this room, but I thank you so much. Thank you so much for the support, for sharing our ad, our video, the ad that I never thought was going to go viral of me walking down the street. But it happened. A real quick story. So Benny, who produced the video, he told me to show up in sweats and hiking boots. And I was like, what? Okay, so I grew up in PG County. We don't do sweats and hiking boots. So I showed up with my red dress and red heels, and I'm so glad that it worked out. I'm so glad that President Trump and his family took notice and really loved it. It's sad that he's not on social media anymore. But I think everybody that got props from him and raised our profiles because of Trump, we should be working hard to make sure we help people that same way. And so that's why I've signed on to help you, Dan, and you, Jordana. I cannot wait. I'm super excited. We're going to do everything that we possibly can, of course. And it's going to take a lot of door knocking. It's going to take a lot of people getting together and really making that time and effort. And I know it's hard. Trust me. Like I said, I have a 5-year-old. I know it's hard. But I think it's going to be worth it. Because when we look on election night and see that you guys have won,
Yeah.
just think about how happy you are. Yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you, beautiful home. Absolutely lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, thank you so much. You know what? I never thought that wait, why should we ride against the police would get me here. I mean, that was like a year ago. Now look at me with all new friends, all these beautiful patriots, and I cannot tell you how Dan asked me to run for lieutenant governor. He's been a pioneer for freedom. He has been fighting for freedom, suing Hogan's administration for discriminating small businesses versus big businesses, non-essential versus essential. While he was doing that, I was fighting for our schools and our kids. So one day he said, hey, I heard what you did in Queen Anne's County. Would you be willing to talk to me and have dinner with me, my wife, and Sally Taylor, his campaign assistant? And I said, well, sure. I called my husband, Mark, who's patiently over there observing everything. And he said, sure. So we had dinner and we talked about it. And I didn't even hear from him for like 2-3 months went by. But I really could care less about that. My focus was on kids and the school board. And I kept talking and educating counties, county by county by county. Guys, this is what you gotta do. You have to get the volunteers. You have to run for the school board. Critical race theory is there. Critical race theory is real. We need to get it out of those textbooks. We need to see what teachers are being educated on. We have to do a complete audit of what our children are doing. And then Dan called and said, you know what? Would you be willing to serve people of Maryland? And what was I supposed to say? Of course I would. I would like to introduce to you one of the best people you could ever wish for governor. His composure, his demeanor, his elegance, his education. He's an attorney like myself. He is a father of 9 children and a true American patriot. Please welcome Dan Cox.
Another round for Jordana and Kim Clayson. Really is an honor and for Jordana to say such nice things about me. You know, maybe she needs to come and live with us a little bit, and you know, the kids run around. But my wife sends her regrets she couldn't make it tonight. She's at home. She picked certain events that is not, you know, hopefully won't wear her down, but she's doing great. She's behind us 100%. If you get a little card in the mail from her, that's one of her things. Yeah, she just blesses us so much. She takes that time. And I want to thank Jordana and Mark for being willing to go on this journey with us. When we did meet and we talked, I said, I'm going to be slow in the draw. I'm going to take my time. There's a lot of people I want to meet and talk with. But Jordana kept rising to the top. And when my wife said, and then my daughter, both were like, you can't ignore this. She is 100%, 100 miles an hour on the very issues that we care about. And I said, I know, I've been noticing. So there was really no decision at that point. It was already done. And I just want to also say, Kim has been inspiring. Kim, you've been more inspiring than you know. There was one voice in Maryland. So I'm a delegate, as you know, 42 members of our caucus in the GOP that I get to serve with. I'm one of those. And there was only one voice who spoke out against the lockdowns at the time that I was venturing to speak out myself, and that was Kim Clayson. She spoke up and took the heat right to where it belonged. And my wife and I noticed that, and we're like, wow, she's continuing on this path of leadership that is so needed for our state and for our flagship city of Baltimore. So we're very proud of you. I am thrilled and honored that you would support us tonight and help us to do this incredible task of raising the money that we need to raise. So thank you. And may God continue to bless you, and we're going to look forward to working together. I'm I'm truly honored that you're looking at me. You know, Red Renaissance and Marcus, I had a great talk with him. Anything I can do to continue to help Baltimore City and our great state, I'm thrilled to partner with you. So I tell you, when you look at our state, you know, I'm really just an everyday guy, one of the people, my wife and I, literally, I had the privilege of marrying her here on the shore. She's from the Eastern Shore, lived in her, her parents' house. She grew up in all her life. We met through, at a young age, actually. We were high school sweethearts, I guess you could say. And then I was a decathlete, and I competed right across the water there at that Naval Academy. And God did a good work. We had an opportunity to go on to law school. We took it. And the end result was we saw a need for our kids, our own family, to run for office. The end result of that was I ran against Jamie Raskin. Anybody heard of that?
Oh, God. Oh, no.
We did 5 debates. The best part of the first debate was I held up a little print off from the American Communist Party, which said, "We support Jamie Raskin." There's only 2 or 3 Congress people running in the country that they endorsed or supported. And I pointed that out to an audience of about 300 people in deep blue Montgomery County.
Ooh.
A lot like, well, actually it's worse than any other area, I think, in terms of liberalism. It's so far left out there. And they were not happy with that. And so the first thing Jamie Raskin did was stood up and he said, "I am not a communist."
Oh.
I thought, I kind of like this debate. We kept fighting, and although I only picked up 35% of the vote, we got 127,000 votes. I've been on the ballot 4 times in Montgomery County. I've had that honor and privilege, and then I became a delegate. Been fighting in Annapolis. When you look at the issues that are presented, they're outrageous. Some of the things that we've had to fight have been fighting pedophiles being put on a jury to try pedophiles.
Oh, my
Can you imagine
gosh.
a mom having to sit and hear a jury pick about her daughter who was raped, or whatever the circumstance, and to hear the voir dire that this person is a convicted felon pedophile, and yet under Maryland law they're going to put him on the jury anyway. We had to embarrass the heck out of them to get that bill pulled off the floor. We fought hard for our Second Amendment rights. We filibustered for the police to make sure we had safe communities for over a week in my committee. And you know what? As Kim mentioned, it was white far leftists that showed up to try to defund the police in my committee. In fact, we had a whole contingent from a neighborhood in Baltimore come in with black pastors and great people saying, "No, we need more police. Well-trained, well-funded, but we need more because our people are getting killed." And there's a serious situation there. So then we had the lockdowns hit us. And as a delegate, I tried hard to play the good soldier with my party at first, even though privately I expressed sincere concerns, particularly because I didn't believe it was correct or right to shut down businesses if the people didn't want to shut down. It's our risk, right? It's our bodies, it's our health, it's our risk. But I probably, unfortunately, did the 14 days, 14 days to bend the curve. Well, I began to find out information that this wasn't really what was up. That there were things going on behind the scenes and plans, and when I heard a plan during that first 30 days, a very specific comment that this was likely to go on for a year and a half, including churches closed, businesses closed, and schools closed for up to a year and a half through the elections, I said, no, hold on, what is this? And very specifically tested the waters with some requests. The end result was total denial, total ostracization. Just look at me like I'm a conspiracy theorist kind of guy. You're not going to be going anywhere. And so that began the journey of where I am today. And what happened was I realized we have to speak up in the moment. We have to stand up. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that the issues that we all believe in are kept firm and are held, both in the practical aspect of the legislation, but also when you're dealing with the more theoretical with our own party. Mm-hmm. And the end result was You know, as you heard, we fought it forward and bit by bit, slowly pushed back. But at the end of the day, it's still in front of us. It's still present. And so I thought, you know, we have to do something more. You can't just stand by in a safe district and go back to Annapolis when there's still going to be, going forward with these measures that are going to continue to crush our economy. $2 billion of wealth taken out of the private sector, small business, and sent out of Maryland. First time in 400 years churches were closed. The first time in Maryland history that you couldn't leave your house under government orders. Okay? And yet, the end result of that was the governor was going to decide who the next governor that he wanted to be, for leading our party. I said, no, not on my watch. Absolutely not. And so we came up with a 5-point contract for Maryland because I thought, you know what, we're going to fly a flag of freedom. We're going to take it so that the delegates that are running, that the local officials, that every person running can point to a pattern, a contract, a lot like in 1994, where we had a contract for freedom, we had a contract for America. We're going to say, these are things that we believe in as a party. So that's what we've done. And when you look at these principles, they're simple. We're going to restore freedom by restoring the Constitution practically to people. Meaning, we're going to end the mandates immediately upon entry into government. No more are we going to have forced vaccination, forced masking, coercion. So I'm going to use the DeSantis rule and reverse that.
All right.
But this is a primary. My opponent, Kelly, she recently just came out and said, oh, I'm against the mandates.
I know. Yeah, right.
Big lie. She stood next to Governor Hogan, March the 5th. She had come up with her own list as Commerce Secretary of non-essential businesses. She stood with Governor Hogan and said, and he announced it, these are the businesses that we'll shut down. And he called them this. The non-essential businesses, and that's people. Corporations are people. This is like my daughter who got fired from her job because she was non-essential. She had to go 800 miles to Florida to be able to get a job, to stay in college. These are people that, like an 84-year-old constituent who the only reason he was cutting hair as a barber was to keep his wife out of the nursing home during COVID. Shut down, non-essential. That's the problem that we're up against. Kelly Schultz believed in that. She said it. She was a participant in it. She also now claims she's against the vax and the face masks. Not so. She stood with Governor Hogan. She said, Governor, I'm going to say it, wear the damn mask. He says, take the damn vaccine. Just take the damn vaccine, Governor Hogan said. You know what she said? Follow the rules. These are the rules. Follow the rules. $5,000 fine, you go to jail. I had MSP showing up at church services. A little backstory, we had churches at Easter time shut down, you might recall. My father's a minister, and so he knows a lot of people. And as an attorney, you know how that works. Attorneys in the room, all of a sudden your phone starts blowing up, and you got 25 pastors calling saying, we're shut down for Easter? Really? I mean, for real? First time in history? I mean, yeah, we were all on board for this 14 days thing or whatever it was, but now we're going to have Easter. So we had to go before what I call the Star Chamber of Governor Hogan's office to litigate, just like before the Magna Carta and with King John and all this, to litigate in a non-stenographed office for freedom to go to church. And the best we could get out of that, after we went through all of that back and forth, was parking lot church. Because they actually denied my petition, they denied my request. And I went back to the Office of Legal Counsel and I said, hold on a second, you cannot deny this because Walmart has 500 cars in it. So if you deny this, we're going to go have a rally in Walmart parking lot and we'll stand on car roofs if we have to. So they said, okay, you can have parking lot church. You have to be 6 feet, you can't go inside the building, you can't, you know, can you imagine? No communion. Like, seriously? You can go down to well, Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday, but you can go down to the little fast food and you can get your fast food. So, that was what I was seeing, and then we come fast forward, that was what Kelly did. She was part of that. And you can't stand by and not speak up as Americans when you see this happening. And I would urge you that if you hear people, if you hear your friends talking about this and saying, well, Kelly, she's not too different, she doesn't like the mandates. It's the biggest lie of our, the last 20 months has been a big lie in many, many ways. Well, this is a continuance of that. Look at the CRT issue. So 2 years ago, I fought the CRT. We had other Republicans we joined in with. We worked across the aisle. They were passing what was called equity lenses, the COMAR. So I wrote a letter. I was on WBAL. We fought it. At the end of the day, they passed the COMAR anyway. Now you have 8 standards in the equity lens for training of teachers and for curriculum standards that were going to be forced through the Board of Ed onto the local counties. What happened? Governor Hogan, and I fought hard for him twice to get elected. I helped carry Frederick County for him. Every flyer I handed out had his face on it, and I told everybody, vote for the governor because he's going to save our state, gerrymandering and all this. What happened was he didn't even show up. Equity lens became the law in the COMAR, and now they're using it to indoctrinate our children. And what did Kelly say? She's on record in front of Frederick County folks, where she's from, I'm from there, saying it doesn't exist in Maryland. Well, she got called out on it, that she's not speaking about it by Steve Moore, who is President Trump's economist. At the Garrett County Republican event, he said, you're not talking about CRT in front of like 80 people. So now she's saying, oh, of course I'm against CRT. But yet, she sits in the governor's cabinet and could issue and encourage the issuance of executive orders and other regulatory changes to say, we have $11 billion in the budget right now talking, you better fix this. You better stop indoctrinating our kids. And that's what I intend to do as your next governor. I'm going to use the power of the office to protect our kids, to make sure that Maryland has a $55 billion budget. $11 billion of that are discretionary, approximately, are discretionary funds. They will be used by the governor. He has a tremendous bully pulpit with the Board of Ed. He appoints them, for crying out loud. The people he appointed to the Board of Ed, sadly, for the most part, were the ones who passed the mask mandate, were the ones who are passing the equity lens issue. Chun Chang Ching, and I'm not making that up, that's her name, very nice lady, I'm sure she's a professional lady. She was appointed by the governor. She believes, she came from the CCP back in the 80s, so I would assume that she was escaping China, I don't know. But I watched her when she passed the mask mandate, and I was appalled at the propaganda, claiming that we have to have, as the equity lens czar, basically on the board, that we have to have an inclusive worldview. This is why we must force our kids to mask. We must not be Maryland-centric. She said this, individual-centric, no, not even Maryland-centric and not even the United States. We need to have a global perspective, and that means we need to wear masks. Pretty much was her theory, and I'm thinking, first of all, it's nonsensical. Secondly, it's propaganda.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And so the only way to change that is to go and change the Republican Party. And when we win the nomination, the party in Maryland changes on day one. America first all the way. It doesn't stop there. On the police issue. Do you know Governor Hogan vetoed some of the defund the police bills, and we were all rejoicing. But do you know that he did it against our wishes on some of these bills? He vetoed them within the legislative period. We said, no, wait.
Oh, yeah.
So that they can't override you until the next session, the next year. So we have time, so the FOP has time to gather the forces and know how to fight this thing. Nope, he gave it to him. They overrode him within 48 hours. That's the truth.
Yep.
I was in the mix. We fought for a whole week against it, and we were totally betrayed. And guess who stood with him through that entire thing?
Yep.
Kelly Schultz.
Kelly Schultz.
Yep.
She sits at his table, and she does nothing. And what she does do is not constitutional or right. And I'm saying this as somebody who I admire her as a person. I'm not trying to denigrate her personally. I'm talking about policy issues, constitutional issues. And then lastly on the budget. They claim that we as Republicans, the underdogs, are not the pro-business candidate, that we're not going to cut taxes, that we're not going to support our business industry. That is entirely false. Let me tell you, we had a governor, our party sweep into power because of the rain tax and of O'Malley's 42 taxes. And those were going to be refunded to us. And we were going to lead the way, and even we had a huge turnout of Democrat support on that. And those people are still waiting for something, for that money to come back to us as refunds. Instead, we get a bloated budget, $55 billion. There wasn't a dime that they didn't like to spend. So when you hear Kelly saying she's pro-business and that she's pro-limited budget and trying to help us live, no, they spent every dime of those tax increases. And furthermore, on their watch, the largest tax increase in history of Maryland through a mandated Kerwin budget was passed. And once again, there was nobody that showed up to fight. Yes, we got a veto, great, but we were out there like on our own. Where was the governor's office? Where was the cabinet? Where was the unifying fight against this $32 billion mandate, which will divest us unless we push back. But that can happen with a new governor. That can happen when we take office. Because
Yes.
we're going to take I am honored and thrilled to be running and to be in this fight for you. Every single day, I try to remind myself, and my wife reminds me, and we remember something. It's not about politics. It's about our kids. And we cannot drop the baton. We cannot drop that flag. We've got to make sure our state continues. We've got to make sure our freedom continues. And we, the people, will ensure that because we're running to make it happen. We're making sure we're going to run through the finish line, just like the best athletes. You don't stop before the finish line. You go all the way through. We're in this to win this. And so we're going to close with an ask because I have a hard deadline. The Democrats have decided to shut me down during session from fundraising. They have furthermore gotten permission for Kelly to raise funds during session, even though she presides over millions and millions of dollars of handouts. She hands out money right now to businesses all over the state. But they're allowing her to fundraise during session, even though she has bills in front of our committees. But I'm not permitted because I'm an elected official. She's not an elected official. I'm a constitutional officer. She's not. So here's the deal. I have to raise funds for our campaign by the end of this month, or excuse me, by the end of December. I've got to have the numbers to post. I've been in touch with our wonderful president, the only president that I recognize right now.
Yeah.
Well, the other one is an alleged one down there. Basement Biden was installed, in my opinion, but
Yeah.
we have a president in President Trump who cares deeply about the America First issues. He cares about our parents. He cares about everything that we've been fighting for. And his campaign is standing there hoping to cheer us on. But one thing is true. We need to post the numbers. And the last thing we need is to show up to battle without having the issues represented by the money. And I hate asking for money, but this is the truth. And as simple as 16 people could get us there. That's how close we are. A small number of people could literally fund this entire big posting, which would shock the establishment, get the attention of President Trump in a serious way, and would fly us through the general session, the General Assembly session, in a way that would put us in position to take down this continuation of unconstitutional overreach that will continue unless we do this. So I'm going to ask my daughter Patience Faith, if she can come explain a couple things, and then also my consultant may be able to say a few words. But thank you all so much.
Thank you guys, first of all. Thank you to the Jeroses and just opening your homes. So thank you guys so much. And so, Dan explained a lot, but basically we have a January 1st deadline coming up, and it's extremely crucial that we raise the amount of funds and meet our deadline by that time. Dan Cox will be cut off from fundraising for himself during that time. Thankfully, Jordana will be able to raise money during that time, but again, we have a specific goal, regardless of that fact, by January 1st, that we really do need to meet. Now, I know some of you have donated beyond the ticket, or the ticket price today, and we really appreciate that. We know who you are, and we appreciate it. But that being said, the max is $6,000. I know not everyone can do that, but if you can give near that, or if you can give that, we really, really do need, like he said, 16 people to max out. Or if you can give another $500 tonight, or give $100 tonight, that would be wonderful. That would be exactly what we need. So come see me. I have the envelope and I have the information sheet to put your information down for your name and your phone number and etc. So so just come see me. Really appreciate you guys showing up. Thank you so much, and we'll do this, but we'll do it with you. So.
Thank you.